Hi, second graders, it's Mrs. Cluin, and it's time for writing. I'm so excited today because you all are writing the end of your monster story. This is going to be great. You already wrote the beginning of your story where you introduced your monster, where you described your setting, and then where you introduced a big problem. Then you wrote your middle, where you had at least 3 substitute monsters come visit you, but none of them were as good as your original monster. Now you're writing your end. Well, you can't just end your story as my monster returned, the end. You need to write this wonderful big ending. Reason being is that all great authors want to end with a really satisfying ending for their reader. They want their reader to put down their book or put down their story and just feel like, wow, I just want to read another one. I wish it wasn't over. That was just the most amazing story ever. You want that feeling just to continue on, and then they're going to run and read everything that you write. So how do you get that feeling at the end of a story? Well, I like to call them satisfying endings. So there are all different types of satisfying endings that you might use for a story. One of them is you might have a big feeling at the end of a story in that you have your reader just their heart be filled and just feel so satisfied. It might end with something like, I had the best time fishing with my dad, or our Halloween party was just awesome. Your big feeling at the end of your monster story might be, I am just so happy my monster has returned. I now finally can fall asleep. Sometimes an author can end the story by remembering back up to part of the story. And this can create a really good ending for the story as well. For instance, if you wrote a story about losing your first tooth, your ending to your story might say, I will always remember the day I lost my first tooth. Or, I will never forget learning about balance. Another way to create a satisfying ending is by having a wish, a hope, or a dream at the end of your story. If you talked about your very, very first trip to Disneyland, you might end your story by saying, I hope to go to Disneyland again. Or if you wrote about your 9th birthday, you might end your story with, I wish every day was like my 9th birthday. An author can also end their story with a lesson. If you wrote about a school assembly, you might say, I learned a lot at that assembly. If you talked about kindness, you might end your story as, I always need to be kind to my friends. In our monster story, you might end it with a lesson saying, I will never, ever neglect my monster again. You might also have a wish and dream from your monster story as, I hope my monster never leaves me again and always helps me fall asleep. So these are just ways you can end your story to create that satisfying ending. I'm going to read you my ending to my story now, and then you can kind of feel which one of these I used. Here we go. Now I was really in a panic. 3 substitute monsters had visited me, and none of them were as good as Mabel. Now I may never get to sleep. Then suddenly I heard a loud creak from underneath the bed. I noticed an eerie yellow glow, and then I discovered that it was coming from Mabel's yellow eyes. Hey, kid, she whispered. It's you, I screamed. Well, I went to Fashion Week in Paris, and all those prancing princesses were too easy to scare. It was no fun at all, so I packed up my bags and headed home to you. So I heard you had some substitute monsters visit you while I was gone, Mabel said. Were you scared? She snorted and stared and started to tap her claws. No other monster can scare me to bed like you can, I said as I dove under my covers. Through the covers, I heard Mabel's teeth grinding, and I knew she was hungry. I'd better not move a muscle, I thought to myself. Mabel was back and everything was normal again. I was so happy I could cry. Then I saw Mabel's slime green ponytail. I shivered and I knew I'd be asleep in no time. So I tried to create that big feeling at the end of my story, and now it's your turn to write the ending of your story. Remember, I've put my whole story in Seesaw for you all if you want to use it as an example. Always using your own ideas because you're awesome, amazing writers. Also remember, you are writing on your line paper. So we are writing out this story. So I want you to continue with this paper and remember to go right in between the two blue lines so that you have the space for our editing and complete your story. Have fun writing.